Final hour overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Yoda, Jeff O'Neill, Frankie Corrado. We've got our best bets later in the hour. Steve Phillips coming up here in a moment on the Dodgers being 8-0. Also, the Braves are 0-7. They're off to a horrendous start.
That's surprising.
That is surprising, and Alex Anthopoulos will not be happy about that. Also, the Padres are 7-0, so those teams out in the NL West are rock stars right now. But the team atop the AL East is the Blue Jays, and they're in action tomorrow as they hit the road for the first time playing the Mets. Home opener for the Mets tomorrow.
You're staying strong on your Vladdy take from yesterday that you're going to hand over the cash?
Yeah, I'm not going to change my mind on
I guarantee
franchise.
We'll ask Steve Phillips, an executive GM, and you say, when you got a guy that wants a ton of cash and he starts out like that, what do? Change
How
your
much
number.
cash are you willing to hand him? Like $520?
Hayes wanted to give him 500
right there.
Well, listen, what I've said is, it's not my money. There's no salary cap. But if you want to be a big game player, the Blue Jays try to portray that image. We're in on Soto. We're in on Ohtani. We're in on all these different guys. Corbin Burns. Who needs the money? We got the money. So you want to keep all these guys, or you want to sign all these guys, and you want to bring in all these guys, and you want to spend a lot of money on your club, and you want to be a competitive club. Then you have your own guy. Yes, it's an absurd amount of money. And you can thank Steve Cohen and Juan Soto and Ohtani and the Dodgers. They've changed the landscape of baseball. It's crazy.
For sure.
But that's what's happened. Those two contracts changed everything. The goalposts started to move. If you want to be a big game player, you got to be able to keep your own guy.
I totally agree.
And
I am with you. Lock step.
Thank you. And that's
Hand
my
over
point.
the cash, because what is the alternative? You going to get someone in free agency? No, you're not.
Yeah,
you get someone with baggage maybe, or someone who's 40 years old. Like, we've kind of seen this story play out.
What are you going to be missing, though, guys? What did they...
Well, you're going to be missing a guy. He can still play. Man, 7 games doesn't mean this guy's forgotten how to play.
Dude, I mean,
get
come on.
that,
but you're talking about a guy that falls asleep at second base. Who knows what he's going to look like in 5 years? You haven't won anything with him.
Okay, then cut it off altogether, though. That's my point. That's my frustration. The Jays, Shapiro, Atkins, they all come out and they say, we believe. We're so close. I talked to the agent an hour ago. Yeah. Then you're in.
Blah, 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 which is prosperity and hope.
Right. Like Ross was speaking Espanol to the agent, trying to lock down a contract, which means you're telling him you're committed. You're in the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. business. Now you're trying to get a win, as much of a win as you can. You're trying to save some money, and I get it. The owner's probably pretty happy with that. The owner would love that. Save me as much money as I can. But ultimately, you got to get the player. And that's what they're saying. We want to keep the player. That's why they're negotiating. That's why they're willing to give him a lot of money.
You got to take some risk.
And you got to close it at some point.
But there has to be a little bit of risk taken in saying that, like, okay, we're going to pay this guy a lot of money because we believe, and we're taking a risk that this guy is going to continue to go down the path of maybe getting even better than what he is right now. And if you don't do that, then you'll just never know, and you'll play it safe. And there's like a limitation to how good your team can truly be, because you're not going to be able to bring in anyone of significant impact the way he can be if things keep going in that direction. Like, I think there's a little bit of risk to it, but you have to take that risk.
Yeah, and that's it. Risk is the word they keep using, right?
Is it?
Risk. Oh, yeah, risk. You got to, but risk on both sides. Yeah. There's no risk for Vladdy if you get $550 million. Like, the risk is kind of out at that point. Like, for him, I guess you're risking your legacy, and you're risking, taking a lot of heat in the marketplace. And that will change, right? I think the fans, they gave him a big ovation when he got called out opening night. I think the majority of fans are on board with Vladdy and want to see him stay. Things change when there's a dollar sign attached to your name that's different than what it used to be, regardless of whether or not there's a salary cap or not. You become a $500 million player, that's the standard you're held to for everybody.
You should, and it should be the case.
That is naturally how it should be. But like, he's still making like $29 million this year. That's the highest paid athlete in the city, I believe, outside of maybe Scotty Barnes and Emmanuel Quickly, I think, is making a little more than that. Maybe RJ.
Does Springer make more? Springer makes less?
No, Springer makes less than that. Okay. Springer makes 25.
Oh, okay.
Something like that. Like, with arbitration, Vladdy's making a lot of money, yet no one talks about the money. And it's different with baseball because there isn't a salary cap. But you demand or ask for $500 and you get it, you better pull your weight, man.
Sure.
Like, people are going to be on you.
And that's the same way, though, like if he were to go somewhere else, if he went to the Yankees or the Red Sox, you think they're not holding him to that standard? Of course they are.
Juan Soto is going to be held to that standard. The Mets are 3-3 to start the year. Okay, not bad. Like you're plugging along. You started on the road, but he's going to have a great year, and he's got to get that team into the playoffs. Like it has to happen. That's the amazing thing about Ohtani, is he got a contract unlike anything we've ever seen in professional sports.
He's the only guy that I would have ever paid that to. That's it. Him.
And he's worth every penny plus. He could have made. It's crazy to say this. They could have given him $1 billion, and it would have made sense.
That's fair value.
Yes, like he shortchanged himself, and he deferred money.
Yeah,
and he made $700 million. Like someone was writing. I read something online last week or a couple weeks ago when they were in Japan to open the season, that Japanese companies have bought up so much ad space at like Dodger Stadium and for Dodgers home games and through their media landscape. It's leaking over. They're buying stuff for the road games. So like these massive Japanese companies, or let's say the Dodgers are in San Diego next week, they're going to San Diego saying, what can we got to buy stuff. Like we're going to have such an audience back here watching this guy play. How can I get in the park? How can I get into the media landscape? That's how much money he's making. And
it's wild.
And let alone the jersey sales and when they went to Japan and it's crazy. It's crazy. And he's pulled his weight. MVP in a World Series last year. And look at this. They're 8-0 and they walked off last night. Ohtani ends up being the guy that does it for him. Here's Steve Phillips, our TSN baseball insider. Is it crazy now, Steve, to look back and say that Ohtani should have asked for $1 billion and he should have been given $1 billion?
Yeah, I mean, with the level of deferrals he was willing to take, and now that we see where Soto's contract went, absolutely. Mm-hmm. You could have done that with the billion, done the deferrals, and the net present value could have been, $600 million, which is still less than what Soto got. And so it's stunning what this guy. And think about the flair for the dramatic. So it was Ohtani bobblehead day yesterday, and some kid yelled to him, "Hey, bobblehead day, you got to get a hit." He got 3. Including the walk-off home run. You go back to last year when he turned into the 40-40 player, he hit a grand slam for his 40th home run. For the 50-50 season, it was on the day that the Dodgers clinched the playoff spot, Ohtani's first time in the playoffs, and it was the 10 RBI game with 6 hits and the home runs, the 3 homers, and the stolen bases, and he became the 50-50 guy in the one day with the 10 RBIs. Then he homers in his first playoff game. I mean, it's unbelievable that in the dugout they were saying at Dodger Stadium, the players there was not a single player who didn't doubt that he was going to end the game with one swing of the bat yesterday. It's just they've grown to expect it. And here's the thing: how is it that we all expect it and he delivers every single time? I mean, really, it's kind of make believe stuff. I mean, it's really very hard to believe that he can do all that he's doing in the way that he's doing it.
Steve, my colleague Bryan Hayes was talking about the Vladdy negotiations yesterday, and he said he would love to sign Vladdy right this moment. He thinks it's time to strike while things are ready to rock here. And I was like, if I got a guy that's commanding that money and it's off to a slow start, I start slow playing it myself. What's the professional GM's play here when you got a guy in this situation, how to handle this negotiation?
Yeah, I think that if you're going to sign him. If you think he's worth $500 million, 2 weeks ago, then he's worth the $500 million now.
Exactly.
Do you think he's worth $500 million, Steve?
I mean, no, I wouldn't give it to him, but I think that I understand why they're going to. They may not be able to afford to give it to him, and I don't think they can afford not to give it to him. I'm not sure, and I don't love the 15 years of a deal. They don't work out. I mean, none of those position player deals have worked out, but it's the price of doing business, and he's your homegrown guy, and you need this, centerpiece around which to build. I do think that taking the burden of the contract off of him will, I think, loosen him up to go out and play, and just not have to even think about it anymore. So, as much as he says he's not, I mean, how can you not when somebody's dangling $500 million out in front of you? So, but I think that, here's the thing. If he got off to a hot start, would you might say, okay, we want to pay up. But what if they come back and said, oh, we want to do $600 million now?
Yeah.
I mean, we know there are peaks and valleys, and And that's why it's really difficult, though, to negotiate in season. Because, what ends up happening is if you don't want to move, you get entrenched in your position. If you're the player and you're swinging the bat, great. And if you're a team and the player's struggling, you get entrenched in your position. That's why I never wanted to negotiate in season, because the emotions of the day impact you, and you can't let it, because you've got 6 years to determine the player's value. You've had him 6 years to know what his value is. You can't let today or yesterday dictate what his value is tomorrow. And so you've got to try to get it done. But that's why I always avoided to do these deals in season, because you can get caught up in the emotions of the player's performance.
Well, that, I think, is possibly a more pressing issue here, where Shapiro, Atkins can speak with his agent. They can figure out certain details. But at what point as a manager do you, and it's early, they're 5-2, the team's off to a good start, but when do you start checking in with Vladdy to wonder, or at least be curious of the fact that maybe the contract is actually having an effect on him? It'd be great if it was a positive effect, but if it's a negative effect, that can happen. These are people we're dealing with. Like, what are the check marks on that? Is it 20 games? Is it 100 at-bats? What is it where you say, okay, I got to look at this guy and wonder myself, is he not playing up to his capability because the contract is hanging over him?
Yeah. So I have that conversation in a way that isn't about the contract. I do it now and just say, hey, man, how you doing? How you holding up? How you feeling? You feeling good? I would do that check-in without attaching it to the contract conversation. Because as a manager, I don't really want to address that. It's not my area to address it. I just want to care about the player, and I want to take a burden off of him. And so I want to talk about how are you doing without acknowledging why you might not be doing well. So that would be one that I would be doing now, yesterday, the day before, tomorrow. That it's just a daily check-in. How you feeling today? How you doing? And if you start to sense anything in that response, then you can address it, as opposed to taking a moment where it's this dramatic moment where, listen, hey, call him into my office. Are you okay? Like, what's going on? Are you letting this bother you? I think you do the daily check-in with them and get going. And look, I think the good news, and I think it's great news for the Blue Jays, that Vladdy and Santander haven't hit yet. I think it's great. They're 5-2 without him.
Yeah.
I mean, so in the bottom of the lineup with Springer and Rodin and Kirk and Jimenez, the middle bottom of the lineup, those are the guys producing right now. And Bichette's swinging the bat well. That Vladdy and Santander are going to get going. And so the good news is you're 5-2 without them, and then they're going to go. And then that's going to make you that much better of a team. And so I really do look at it that it's good news that Vladdy and Santander haven't hit yet, because it speaks to the length and depth of the lineup, which is such an important thing. If those guys were hitting and everybody else was fumbling along, we might think, oh, that's great. And I got to tell you, I don't know that it would be great. Because I know that those two are going to hit. I don't know what the rest of the lineup is doing. So the fact the rest of the lineup is doing well is, I think, is probably the best thing for the Blue Jays right now.
Steve, there are some positives to build on, and we'll get to those in a moment, but we only get to talk to you so often, so we have to some house cleaning items. And one for me is Scherzer's thumb. Like, can you explain to me how this guy wheels out there one time and his thumb is connected to his ribs? Or I just find the whole thing to be wacky. And how did we get here with this guy? Tell me the breakdown of this.
So the thumb is connected to the arm, and he talked about how the thumb is not the ribs. Now in the operation game that I played, sometimes when I went for the thumb, I did hit the rib cage with the wrench in there.
Yes.
That would set off the buzzer.
Yeah. But Steve, I guess the question I should have asked you is, were they not aware of this going into it, or they wanted to take the risk?
I think they knew that he had some of these issues. Look, his vulnerability is there in his transaction report. All you have to do is look at the time spent on the injury list over the last couple of years, and so you know it. And you listen to the player, and then you're assuming a risk. Now it's a 1-year risk, and it is $15 million. But remember, they're the same team that signed Kirby Yates a couple of years ago. And I think he threw 2 pitches in spring training, ended up getting Tommy John surgery, didn't pitch it off for him. They paid for the surgery, the rehab, everything else. And then he came back and was a great pitcher in Atlanta and then Texas. And now he's a Dodger. And so, they assumed a level of risk with hope that they could get, an impact for Scherzer in the clubhouse and everywhere else. And I think that this is one that when you start making deals with these 1-year deals with these older pitchers, at some point the deterioration is going to hit. You don't always know when. Look, if the previous couple of years are an indicator, then it's a precipitous decline. But I think they thought that they might catch lightning in a bottle with it, and they don't mind having him around, if he's not pitching. But they need to get this thing addressed. I know he doesn't want to pitch without it being addressed because he understands that if he does pitch with the thumb issue, it will lead to an elbow and a shoulder issue because the compensation for trying to throw the ball in a way that doesn't hurt your thumb leads to pressure points and torque and issues that in other areas that could lead to more serious injuries. So I get why they're taking some time to fix it. I just don't know if it's fixable.
That's, not what you want to hear when you're talking about something like that for a pitcher that, we probably knew there was going to be some kind of baggage that he carried over, but that sounds more bleak than you would want to hear. And I guess, if we switch over to a good story for a veteran guy who's, on the back end of his career, it's George Springer. He's got an OPS over 1,000 right now, actually well over 1,000. We know that's not going to stay up there the whole season, but how important is it for George Springer to be contributing to this team this early in the season?
So I think it's great, and I think that if anybody had interest in him, I'd trade him. I would, and I just mean it in a way that I just think that with the age, as the season progresses, I expect the performance to decline a bit. And if he's spiking now and somebody has interest and needs a veteran outfielder, I'd be willing to move him and then take my chances with what I have and go out and try to get somebody else and mix and match a little bit. But if I can get out from underneath that money for the next couple of years, I'd make a deal. And because I don't know that, my experience tells me that veterans can peak a little bit again and they can return to that form, but sustaining it when the body starts to deteriorate and let them down I expect there will be a decline in the second half of the season. And it's not a knock on George Springer. It's just, Father Time is undefeated. And as is gravity, by the way, guys. I tell you what, I went to my last physical. Where was I height-wise, and where am I right now? What's going on, man? Gravity is undefeated. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beating you up. That's not good. Yeah, you got to fight back, Steve.
Tell you, I'm putting it out there for you guys. Beware that whatever your height is right now will not be your height in 20 years. I'm just.
What do you mean? When you were the GM of the Mets, you were 5'11", and now you're 5'7", or what the hell's going on?
Yeah, well, no, I was 5'11 and a half, and now I'm 5'10 and a half. I've lost a full inch, and that's just gravity pounding down on you. And Mets fans pounding down on you on a daily basis.
Exactly.
That can wear you out.
That's the job telling you something. That's exactly it. Being a GM for so long, sending you a message at some point. It's interesting, the Jays at 5-2 and the lineup changes or the lineup decisions. I think when it came out opening day, you're like, all right, Bichette into Vladdy, into Santander. Okay. And then Andreas Jimenez hitting cleanup, caught the ire of a lot of people, especially considering how that was just a black hole for them last year. Whoever hit fourth in this lineup was basically giving nothing to this team. And now this guy has hit 3 home runs. He's getting on base. He's stealing bases. I think it's similar to Springer, not to the same extent, but his stats are going to come back to earth here. He's not going to hit 65 home runs. But the reasoning for it was they thought, he can't hit for a little bit of power. If he gets on base, Kirk can move him over, which we've seen at times. He's already, again, stolen some bases. This is definitely unconventional, but what do you make of it, and how long do you think it could last?
Yeah, here's the thing. He's a contact guy. And so, if you get runners in scoring position between Bichette, Guerrero, and Santander, then the contact guy is not a bad guy to have batting in that fourth spot where man on third, less than 2 outs, he can pick up an RBI. Man on second, it takes a single to pick up that run. And so, he's a good baseball player. And I know his offense went down the last couple of years with Cleveland, but a couple of years ago he had a really solid offensive season, really good. Here's the thing. Nobody maintains these elite levels of performance. Not even the best players don't. There are peaks and valleys throughout the year. And what you hope is that, now Springer's hot And then when he starts to cool off, then you need Vladdy to get hot. And then when Vladdy has a little bit of a cool off, Santander needs to hit home runs. The timing of when guys get hot matters. And so that's why, right now it's great that they're getting production from the non-Vladdy guys and the non-Santanders, because at some point those guys are going to produce. And then when they do cool off, you're going to need Kirk to hit a home run and to drive in some runs. And you're going to need, Varsho to come back and get on one of those streaks. See, he can get on a streak. He doesn't sustain it well, but if the timing of those streaks work out, then you can sustain an offense throughout the course of a season. You want your big guys to produce, and generally they're more consistent than everybody else. But you do want to have that length and depth of the lineup where you're not just waiting and only giving yourself, with the first 3 hitters, 3 innings a game to score runs, right? You want to be able to have as many innings a game where you're threatening to score. And so the idea that you can manufacture, if Jimenez is leading off an inning and he can get on, and he can steal a base, you can get him over and get him in, that's another way to score. And that's what you need, is different ways to put up a crooked number on the scoreboard.
So the Jays in New York for opening day tomorrow. 3:07 first pitch. Juan Soto will be introduced to all the fans in Queens tomorrow. They're 3-3. Soto's off to an okay start. Not great, not awful, decent start. What do you expect the vibe to be like tomorrow at Citi Field? What do you think the ovation will be like for Soto? And at what point do New York Met fans start putting pressure on him to, do what he's supposed to do and make sure this team's, rocking early and often?
Yeah, I think the vibe is going to be crazy. I think that they're so happy they signed Soto. They beat the Yankees in that negotiation. They need Lindor to get going, and Soto will go. He just needs somebody around him, because Alonso has struggled. Lindor has struggled a bit, and so if somebody else gets going, Soto will he's going to get hot. Plus, I think he's one of those guys like Ohtani. He knows the big moment, and he doesn't let those go by. Don't be surprised if you get a home run from Soto tomorrow on opening day at Citi Field.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that plays to the crowd, and that's going to be an opportunity for him to make a statement to Mets fans to start his time and his love affair with them.
Absolutely. Will be a fun one tomorrow, Steve. Great catching up with you. Thank you for doing this.
My pleasure, guys. Anytime.
There he is, Steve Phillips, our TSN baseball insider. Jays Mets tomorrow. All right. Chris Johnston coming up on the Leafs win last night on that fight between Chatfield and McMichael. Connor McMichael.
He got me thinking of Carmichael Arena up in Sudbury. It's like a legend. If you ever played the Big Nickel, you played at Carmichael for sure.
Great old rink.
Gritty arena. Speaking of gritty things, can I ask you guys a quick question where you stand on something? Mm-hmm. I see this quite often, and now the weather's nicer, and I'm seeing it a little bit more. You would have friends that work in trades. They got the white work van. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. I see a lot of times the white work van with one door open and like 2x4s or other items basically like jetting out. And you hope everything's, locked in. But I'm like, it's not the most reassuring thing watching you go 120 on the 400 with that door open. Yeah. I'm like, there is stuff, I'm sure of it, that is not fastly secured back there.
Dude, they're professionals. We played hockey. These guys know how to keep tools from flying out the that's their move.
That's very true. I mean, it is nerve-wracking.
They've done it forever, and they're going to keep doing it, and they know how to keep the operation tight.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
I have faith. I have faith in
Do you?
that. I hope so.
I don't always
I hope
have
so,
faith,
but I'm behind them, and I'm like, I got to get away from this thing. Like, even if I got to go 150 to get around him, I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to, because it is those work trucks, and if you get like a pickup truck that's loaded in the back and you're like, what's going on back there? That guy, he just picked up something, like there's shrapnel that's going somewhere, and you're right, he's flying down the 400, flying down Highway 7, whatever
just
it is.
One pothole, and like there's a drill bit going right through
something's
my windshield.
Coming your way immediately. And I think you have the right of the road to just fly by that guy. But that guy's never going slow. Like,
because he's got to get to a job. And that, I respect, those guys.
Absolutely.
They work hard, man.
But they know what they're doing. Is right, man. Like, very rarely do you see a mistake in a scenario like that.
Yeah, there can't be.
They know how
There's
to
no
keep
room
it
for error.
Locked down, absolutely. All right, best bet still to come. Chris Johnston coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, best bet still to come. Chris Johnston coming up here in a moment. Again, the fight last night, Jalen Chatfield, Connor McMichael went at it, and Chatfield kind of UFC takedown with a sweep of the leg and a slew foot. But no suspension, no fine, nothing from the league. Nothing.
Not in the rule book.
Not in the rule book.
UFC takedown is not Rule 78.1 in the rule book. So,
well, but here's
Hayes, you did bring up a good point. As much as I thought that I would have come down hard on him to let everyone else in the league know, but then you're getting in the definition of what do you do when you fight? Is it like what? It's never really been discussed. You're only allowed to stand there and just throw bombs at each other. Anything outside of that is not allowed.
Yeah,
that's where the question comes. But
I
really don't like to. Well,
I don't like it.
Like, what else can you do? You can't kick someone. You can't knee someone. You can stand there and punch and grab.
Takedowns are a part of fighting. Like it always is. And guys go down. Guys pull each other down. There's different elements to it. I'm just saying, like the idea of players within the moment. The idea that they should be considering safety during a fight, that's an oxymoron.
Yes. Well, I just don't like the idea. Fighting is one thing, but the idea, just do something drastic right off the bat. It's like you want to drop the gloves and throw bombs at each other, but if there's any part on any side that is involved in a takedown, it's so-and-so. And they could have just started it with that. I don't know. I just really hated the play.
I didn't like it either. It's very uneasy. I get it.
It's one of those plays, Brian, where if it happens and it gets ugly and that guy goes off in a stretcher in an ambulance and something really bad happens, then we're looking at us like, what kind of dummy league is this? Well, barbarians.
And if that's the case, then you got to get rid of fighting. That's my point. There's no gray area. If you're going to have fights, you're going to have guys trying to hurt each other. That's what happens.
I think if you really wanted to, you could find a way to work that into the slew foot rule, because he used his feet. If you blow it up and you watch, you can see he kind of does slew foot him.
Yes. Oh, he knows what he's doing.
And they always say, the league always says, we evaluate these things on a single event basis, or whatever the terminology they use, an event by event basis.
In a vacuum.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So looking at that in the vacuum in the one single event, it's dirty. I don't know what the hell you're going to call it, but it is a dirty play.
Did you think Sam Bennett slew-footed Tavares last night? Do you think that was a slew foot in the third period? Do you guys remember the play? Like right by the side of the net?
Is that where they chatted after?
Yeah, and Bennett started talking to him, and I'm guessing Bennett was like, "Hey, sorry about that." To me, it looked like the old "sorry, but I know what I'm doing." Accident on purpose.
Maybe you got your wires crossed beforehand and then realized after.
I think he got him, knew he got him, and then maybe realized that it's Tavares, and I maybe didn't have to do that to him. But it's Sam Bennett. Like that's how he plays. Yeah. I thought it was slew foot.
Future Leaf, I'll give him a hall pass.
Yeah. One, though, again, I don't need to revisit this, but I would have loved to have seen Tavares get up and just two-hand him right across the wrist. Like, just lose it on him. Didn't happen. Here's Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider. What's happening, CJ?
John Tavares too busy using that stick scoring goals lately. He
Yes,
doesn't have time to be two-handing anybody.
Yes. Do you know the play I'm referencing? Do you have a take on that?
It's funny, I was in the building, but I missed it, and then I didn't go back and look at it. Someone mentioned it down when we were by the dressing rooms post-game and said they thought it was a slew foot, but unfortunately I didn't actually check it out.
Yeah, it was a accident on purpose.
That's exactly what that was.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of know what I'm doing, but I'm going to bobble around and make it look like I didn't know what I was doing. But
yeah. And that could have been dangerous, man.
Oh,
that could have been dangerous. Man. Like, Tavares fell right back, like, on his head. And, again, it's Bennett. And that Bennett's going to do that stuff, man. Like, that's what's going to happen. But you're right about Tavares, like up to 36 on the year. Like, what more can you say? We were talking about it earlier this week, CJ. This isn't a guy performing on a contract year type thing where, hey, I'm just going to show up now and try to get paid. He's been doing this his whole career.
He has, but, I mean, it's hard not to look at the numbers and especially look at the surge he's had in the last month or so and wonder if, a little bit extra motivation, channeling some of that uncertainty. I think probably I'd put him in the bucket of players that the time off for the Four Nations break, I'm sure, helped them just in terms of getting some rest and recovery for this push towards the playoffs. But, it's you're right. It's not anything you haven't seen, but it's at a different level. I think especially early on, you had two stretches that stand out to me. Obviously, March, is probably his best month, I think, by goals anyway in the NHL that he's ever had. So that was obviously a strong period. But even since the start of the year when Matthews was out injured, Tavares, played a lot more minutes than, he had the last couple seasons, was put into some situations and produced at a pretty insane level. And that's how you get this season when you add that all together. I mean, he's got a chance to have this be his second best goal scoring season, at his stage of his career. And someone who's known for scoring goals, that's pretty impressive. So, credit to him. And I think it does set up for an interesting offseason as we look forward to his future.
CJ, not to jump around too much, but we were talking about the non-suspension, the play by Jalen Chatfield last night. Like, what does the league say about not handing down a suspension for a play like that?
Well, what's interesting to me, Frankie, is they said that there wasn't even a lot of debate in their room. I think that they look at it as two guys who are spinning from the start of the fight, that are sort of struggling for balance, and they view essentially a trip and fall situation where they touch heels as more of an accident than something where Chatfield did on purpose.
That's like when Jay Leno accidentally fell into that light pole and had the black eye.
He fell down a hill.
Is that what he? Oh, it was a hill. Yeah,
that fell down a hill.
That hill gave him the black eye.
Go ahead, CJ. I know you're saying what the league is saying. It's not your opinion personally, but continue.
Yeah, basically they view it as two strong guys that are grappling, that are a little off balance and are trying to get some leverage, and then it has that outcome. And I don't think that they honestly had anything close to debate about whether it should be suspendable or anything like that. I think that, internally they view that as just the outcome of that fight. And so it goes back to, I just heard the start of your conversation, or the end of it rather, at the start of this hit. But, to me, if that's what you're viewing it as, then if you don't like that play, it's almost like you can't have fighting, because, the players department is full of guys who fought for a living, George Peros at the head of it, but you got Ryan Getzlaf in there now, Stefan Gintel, other people have done this, and if that's what they're concluding, and if we decide we don't like it, I mean, it's hard to. Where do you find the middle ground? I guess maybe if the helmets are off, you got to stop a fight. Maybe I'm not sure how you can safeguard for that, because that play clearly could have had bad outcome, whether there was intent or not.
Absolutely. What is your read on this Anthony Duclair, Patrick Waugh, New York Islanders situation, where Waugh really called him out after the last game, and then today Duclair asked Waugh for time off. He was granted it, and he's no longer with the team right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, Duclair's had a really tough year. He signed a 4-year contract there as a free agent, and has not produced at anywhere near the rate that you're used to seeing, and clearly, things aren't going well between him and the coach to have Waugh's frustration, come out in the public sphere the way it did after that game. And so, we live at a time, I think, where mental health and things of that nature are taken more seriously in sports and elsewhere. And so, he's asked for some time to process this and probably think about his future and, maybe catch his breath from what's gone on. But, I don't know where it goes from here, other than the Islanders seem on board with that. And I think Patrick understands, how they got to that spot in terms of him, not feeling comfortable with the situation. So I don't know a lot of the behind the scenes of what's happened there, but, on the surface, you see a player who struggled to fit in with the team get called out in that manner. You just hope that whatever's going on, that he's taking care of himself. And it appears that is the case with his request to take some time away.
Just going to be interesting how they get back to even ground zero. How do you get back into the room and feel comfortable? Okay, I'm back and ready to go. That's he basically said he had no business being in that lineup, which is probably true. And that's bottom of the barrel for a player. And you said he signed a 4-year deal there?
Yeah, and I believe it's full no trade clause throughout the contract too. So, this isn't. I mean, maybe there's a buyout in his future. I mean, there are ways you could, I guess, move on from that kind of deal, but none of them are appealing when you're only in the first year of a 4-year ticket.
No kidding. I guess let's segue to Vancouver. What is your read on the relationship between Rick Tocchet, Elias Pettersson, and their future in Vancouver?
Is there something specific I might have missed?
No,
or?
I'm just talking about the way Pettersson's been going. I guess, Tocchet was making some comments recently. The market's starting to go a little bit crazy out there, wondering if Tocchet and Pettersson are on the same page. Tocchet's uncertainty in the future, what's going on with Pettersson, him not playing, him being hurt.
Well, before you
them
answer,
playing
CJ,
the way they played last night.
How could they, Brian, be on the same page? It's not even possible. When you have a guy, you just heard Patrick Waugh talking about Anthony Duclair. Do you think there's any possible chance that Rick Tocchet and Pettersson are on the same page right now? A guy grossly underachieving for more than a year? How could that possibly even be a thing? It's not.
Yeah, valid, 100%. But yeah, I guess where do you think Tocchet has to consider that in terms of his future? Like, what is he getting out of Pettersson, and why would he stay if Pettersson's going to play like this and make $11.6 million?
I think it's an under maybe discussed or thought about part of Rick Tocchet figuring out what is best for him after the season is just what's the direction of the organization? What kind of team is he going to be coaching? What's management's plans? I mean, it's been an abject disaster there this year, and I don't think it falls just on one player or just on one coach. I mean, this is an organizational issue. To have a team that, was within a breath of getting to the conference final last year and to dealt with all the different things they have, personality conflicts, trading away JT Miller, the Pettersson situation. I mean, look, he's got to wear it too. He's signed a big contract and has not been remotely close to a player that should be getting paid $11 million. And then if you're in the coach's seat and you're trying to think, hey, this might be a good time where other teams might want me, maybe some better spots to go. I mean, it's got to at least cross your mind if you're Rick Tocchet. So, I don't know how that's going to all shake out. I do believe him when he says that conversation hasn't really happened yet, with the Canucks, and it's not really one that I think that they can get into too meaningfully while there's still a little bit of daylight left on the season, although obviously Vancouver's playoff chances have plummeted here the last little bit. But, it'll be an interesting few days, when the Canucks are done, just to see how does management approach that. I mean, the Canucks clearly want to keep Tocchet. They've already indicated that desire to try to get him extended. But, I think he has to decide if he wants to stay. And I don't think it's just about the one player. It's more about, where's this organization and how can we be sure we're moving into a good spot? Because, I think you could write a book about all the things that have gone wrong there this year.
CJ, I'm seeing a headline here that says NHL to address LTIR/cap playoff issues. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Well, CBA talks officially are underway this week, and it is the league's desire, finally, after a lot of toing and froing on that issue, to at least try to see if there's some way the rules can be tweaked, where that is addressed. And so that's what the plan is right now. Obviously, anything that happens, the players would have to sign off on it. And, it's not yet clear exactly what that will look like. But, I think it's fair to say that, there's even some players out there that maybe don't like the way teams have used LTIR, whether it was the Kucherov situation a few years ago in Tampa or Mark Stone in Vegas. You want to go way back, Patrick Kane in Chicago, and there's others. It's not just those teams. But, if you remember the Lightning made T-shirts or something, $92 million team, I think it was a Dougie Hamilton comment after the Hurricanes got beat up by Tampa that year in the playoffs. So, it's a bit of a hot button issue. It's seen as, I think, by some as a loophole. And as those CBA talks get going, I think what's great about those is we're not supposed to hear too much. I think they're just going to try to salt that away and announce an extension without any of us having to worry about it or dive too deeply into it as we go along here. But one of the things that our colleague Pierre LeBrun reported tonight on IT just was about the fact the league wants to address that LTIR issue if they can come up with something with the Players Association.
With Chris Johnston, so Ottawa at home against Tampa tonight. Brady Tkachuk not playing. This will be the fourth game he misses this year, I believe, with an upper body injury. They're 0-3 when he's not in the lineup. What are you hearing in terms of his status and in terms of whether this is something to be concerned about beyond tonight?
Well, it seems like a case in this scenario where they're being almost overly cautious, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I think that they look at the standings, and while they're still obviously fighting to officially lock up their spot, they're in a spot where they don't need to be pushing anyone to the limit at this stage. And obviously, given how important Brady Tkachuk is to them, it's a separate issue from the one he had at the Four Nations. He had an awkward collision on Sunday with Ryan Graves of Pittsburgh and just was feeling sore. And so I think it's sort of under the bucket of abundance of caution right now. But let's face it, he also was dealing with that lower body injury that did cost them games coming out of the Four Nations. And so I think it's an opportunity that they're seeing on their schedule to get Brady some extra rest and have him for the most important time of the year, which in this case does look like it's going to include playoff games for the first time since Tkachuk was drafted by the Senators. So this is one of those ones where if they had to win tonight's game to get in, I think he'd be playing, but they don't have to. And so I think they're just taking it easy with him and trying to make sure they get the best version of him in 2 weeks' time.
What about on the Leaf front? Jake McCabe and David Kampf left the game last night. Hear anything on them?
I didn't hear anything today. They didn't have practice on those guys. I mean, it was a weird situation with McCabe. I actually didn't. Again, being in the building, I didn't see how he got tangled up with the linesman. I guess it was in celebrating that goal, the breakaway goal, but it was very sort of strange circumstances there. Camp, you saw him kind of laboring off after his last shift. We're going to have to see what the Masters report has for us when they get back on the ice tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. All right, CJ, thank you for doing this. We'll do it again soon.
Okay, boys. Be well.
Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider.
Sounded like he had his window down on the highway there.
He might be a motorcycle guy.
Do you remember when there was that snowstorm or that rainstorm and his car kept beeping and beeping?
Yes.
You remember that?
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was
town,
only
man.
one of the few that we've experienced. We could do a best of and play it all summer of the corny calls we've like.
Oh yeah. That was it for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So, CJ, let me ask you one more thing, CJ, before we let you go. It never stopped, man. 15 minutes of that breaking news. Like around the trade deadline or something. It was something crazy, too, that was going on. We're like, man, we got to keep this guy on. Like, this is good stuff. Thank you, CJ. Appreciate the update.
And he was like, I'm trying to close my door, and this noise, it was insane.
I think we ignored it for the first couple minutes, and then finally said something.
Yeah. What are you
Are
doing?
you having surgery or something?
Yeah, like, what is your problem? Please address the elephant in the room. The McCabe thing, though, I didn't see it. He was out there the last 2 minutes. Remember, they iced the puck, and he got a change because it was a medical break. And then we just never heard anything more about what's up with him and what's going on. Like, David, you don't want to see anyone get injured.
No.
You can survive. You start losing any of these defensemen, any of the big four.
You need everything to be aligned exactly the way it is right
needs
now.
To be aligned.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's like every team, too. You think Florida wants to go into the playoffs without Barkov?
No.
That's going into the playoffs without Barkov and Tkachuk and then missing 2 Ekblad games.
Massive.
They're losing in the first round. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
As much as we love Florida and they're a great team, they can't withstand that. Or maybe they can. Maybe they can. I don't know.
Unless
that's a
Bobrovsky
huge
decides,
chunk.
and Bennett steps up, and Marchand arrives, and makes a point of sticking his nose in things. I don't know. We'll see. I'm with you. I think that would be incredibly difficult for them to overcome, but they are the Cup champs, and they are a very resilient team.
Let's take a break and come back and watch Ernie Els on the putting green.
Come back with Ernie from the Masters as we set up for next week. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Habs money line tonight. Raptors, I'm going to take the points, 4.5. Portland's not a good team. These are the games where the Raptors, you're tanking, you got to lose, and then they find a way to show up and compete, if not win. And they're getting 4.5 at home. Scotty Barnes is going to play. I just don't see Portland blowing them out. So I'll take the points, and I'm on the Habs at home against Boston tonight. That parlay paying plus 180. Today's Best Bets powered by FanDuel. Live same-game parlays are now available for every NHL and NBA game on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. 19 plus, physically located in Ontario. Boston going for 10 losses in a row tonight. And it's a must-win for the Habs. They got Boston tonight, Philly, I think, on Saturday, at Nashville on Sunday. You got to get points
nice
here, man.
Nice little stretch here.
Got to get points if you're Montreal. Because New York won again last night. The Rangers they're in it.
Yeah.
The Habs got a game in hand, and New York's they're still in it.
Those Rangers, man, how they've stayed alive, I don't know. Who
Crazy.
knows? Maybe they hope they can do it, though.
Well, you know what they did? They looked like Ernie Els early in the season. That's what they looked like.
Let's see this guy at the Masters.
Come on, Ernie. There you go. Just tap it in.
I can't believe it.
Next one. I'll get the next one. Don't worry about that. Let's see what we got here.
Look at this stab.
Oh,
Look at
Oh.
that stab. And Ricky Faldo was on the call, too, I think. Wasn't he like, oh, no.
That's where, when you're playing with him, you start to look away, or you start walking over to the next hole.
Yeah, put a marker on
you're
the
gone
ball.
here.
Dude, mark the ball and read
this
it.
keeps going. Watch this. This guy's like, there's no way in hell I'm getting this one.
What are we?
He puts his hand up.
That's 3.
Yeah, he puts his.
Four.
Oh no!
Snobby McGee.
There it
5. Oh,
Took a 9. Set the tone for the whole tournament. I think that might have been on Thursday.
It was, dude.
Yeah,
It was
Thursday.
first guy on the course. Welcome to the Masters, and that guy's 7-putting on
It
one.
was Hayes' favorite, Sandy Lyle, and then Ernie.
And the Big Easy.
With the 9.
Send Sandy out.
Sandy Lyle out with his fishing waders, and Ernie 7-putting.
Well, you know that Bernie Langer's playing his last Masters.
I should have went.
Yeah, this is
I should
it.
have
This
went
is
to pay
Bernie's.
respect to Bernie.
I'll believe it when I see it. He'll be there next year.
Yeah.
100%.
Dude, he'll finish top 10 and be like, screw it, I'm coming back.
Absolutely. He'll qualify, even though he
He'll
already
win.
has because he's
That
won.
bastard will win that thing.
He might. All right. Good stuff. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at
4 p.m.?
We'll chat then.